So what happens if you run into a kitten that's between 8 to 12 weeks old and you're not sure whether you should try to socialize it or just get it spayed and neutered and vaccinated and then return it back to its colony? Socialization takes a lot of work. Most rescues and shelters do not have the time and space to do it. So I'm hoping that watching this will give you a little bit more information on how to do it yourself. In this video, we're gonna follow a kitten named Franny from when she was around 8 weeks old all the way to being several months old and finally ready for adoption. We got off to a bad start because I needed to grab the kittens from a wood pile that was an unsafe area, high traffic. I wasn't gonna be able to trap them. And that's always the worst way to start off a socialization project, especially if the kitten is already 8 weeks old, because their first interaction is negative and it's with your hands. But that's what I needed to do to get them out of there safely, and so that's what I did. You can't really do anything the first day, you just need to let them calm down, but the second day I brought them to their new foster. I knew she hated me and she didn't want to be there, but I also wanted to know if she was food motivated at all. And so I used chicken baby food to test that out. That's a great sign because it means no matter how spicy she might be over the next couple weeks, I can use food as a motivator to bring her closer and eventually kind of get her trust. We typically give all kittens a flea bath with Dawn dish soap. You can skip this step if you feel like the kittens are really hostile, but a lot of times they might be too young for Revolution or other flea medication.
Don't be mad.
So for the first week, you're really looking for any indication that they can be socialized. And if they're very food motivated, that's a good sign. For the next few weeks, Allison's goal is to establish a positive association with people by making sure that Franny only gets food when she's around. After a few weeks, all 4 kittens were getting more comfortable inside. Franny was really enjoying playtime, but she was still a little apprehensive about people. So I decided to bring her home and work with her solo, because cats can progress much more quickly that way. You can see why I mentioned earlier that rescues and shelters don't often have the time to socialize kittens. Imagine splitting up every litter of 4 kittens and sending 1 to each foster. It's just not a good use of their time or space. In this case, we had already made a commitment to socialize all of these kittens, and most of them were doing well, so I wanted to make sure that we could get Franny over the finish line. I spent 1 to 2 hours with her every day, just convincing her that people were not a threat. And after a few weeks, I was really starting to see some progress, but she still had an issue with my hands.
What the f***? I'm happy I told you I'm in love.
This playful body language shows us that she does want to engage, but she just doesn't trust people yet. Watch her ears go back whenever my hands approach. Remember that she was fine sitting in my lap, so really this is the issue that I need to work on if she's going to be ready for an indoor home.
What are you thinking of?
Of how dangerous you are, Joe.
I'm not dangerous.
Keep in mind, most kittens can be socialized in just a few weeks, as long as they're under 8 weeks when you start. But Franny was our toughest case of the year. I decided to go back to the basics, and that means hand feeding every single meal for a week straight. The bad news is your hands will smell like turkey all the time. The good news is very quickly you start to develop new associations with hands. So now instead of potentially seeing my hands as a threat, they're literally the source of all of her food, treats, and playtime. And that starts to add up. I've dropped a couple other links to some really great socialization videos in the description. And they talk about things like hand feeding as critical steps that you can start right away when you begin socializing a new kitten. When someone has a deeply held belief, you're not going to change their mind with just one conversation. And that's the same with cats. I needed to prove to her over and over and over again, 100 times in a row, that people and hands are not a threat. After weeks of hand feeding and always having treats nearby, Franny started to see my hands as a good thing. And of course, the ultimate sign of progress is when they just appreciate your company. You don't have any treats, they're just glad to see you, and they're okay with maybe being held a little bit. And they especially love getting all kinds of scratches and scritches and attention. It feels really good to see that she's not just tolerating your presence or doing what she needs to do to get food, but actually really seeking out that affection. So by this point, I knew that Franny was finally ready for adoption and that she would accept a new family and be able to bond with them the same way she eventually bonded with me. And because I had documented her progress along the way, I could easily help potential adopters understand where she came from and the work that they would also have to put in to earn her trust.